About to get on.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome, South by Southwest 24. We're here on the design track. Thank you for coming out. Yeah, come on.
Let's go, everybody.
Good morning. So appreciate you all joining us for Designing the Future, How Innovators Create What's Next. Here's your cast for today. I'm Val Vacante, VP of Solutions Innovation at Dentsu. My role is all about creating new products, productized services, and joined with me is...
My name is Chris Down. I'm Chief Design Officer, Head of Design for Mattel, which is, you may know Mattel, but the brands are much more popular than the master brands. So Barbie, there's this movie, but there's also some other stuff that's almost as good. Hot Wheels and American Girl, Fisher Price, and Polly Pocket, and Masters of the Universe that kind of dig into your childhood in a fun Mattel time.
All right, I'm Phil Sage, and I lead the design innovation function at PepsiCo North America. And we cover just a little brand by the name of Pepsi, as well as our entire food business, which is under the Frito-Lay umbrella. So the Cheetos of the world, the Doritos of the world. So yeah, very rich brand portfolio, and yeah, sort of disrupting and transforming the company, into many new different spaces and territories. So very exciting. We have a wonderful team of global designers, which contribute to that story. So very happy to be here at South by Southwest, and yeah, thanks for the invite.
And hi everybody, I'm Matt Lorrain, based in New York. I work for Google, where I'm a global head of creative innovation, and my job is pretty much to connect the dots between emerging technologies and big partners, especially in the space of media entertainment. And so we work on technologies such as augmented reality, virtual reality, Gen AI, and try to figure out a way to use those for storytelling, innovation, and design.
Now, for the session today, we're going to really cover sort of what does it take to innovate. So we'll share our perspectives there. Then we'll kind of dive into real-world examples, because there's nothing worse than people just talking about innovation. We want to share our stories and really show what's been created and sort of lessons learned. And then we'll kind of wrap it up, of course, talking about the future. So with all that being said, here's the starter question. What does it take to innovate? We'll start with you, Chris. Tell us, innovation is a big deal. Like, what does it take to innovate at Mattel?
I mean, it is a big question, and a lot of things that everybody kind of intuitively knows already. And innovation inherently is about creating something that's new. And those of us, I mean, how many of you are dealing with in your work brands, that you have brands that you're working on? How many of you are dealing with products that you want people to care about? I mean, the idea that innovation, that innovation in something new is just kind of a headline, which it feels like sometimes it is. It's actually the lifeblood of what keeps people interested in your products, your brands, your services, and anything that you're putting out there. I mean, ultimately, we're putting things out there for people, for consumers to consume, to connect with. And so the role is critical. So from an importance point of view, it's high on the list. It may be the highest on the list, especially for a designer like me and those that share the same objectives that I share at a company like Mattel. We can get into later a little bit of some of the mechanics and the way that we look at opportunities for innovation and how that works and what the right pace is, because inherently in innovation is also risk. And depending on the company, depending on the product, depending on the timelines, depending on the capital investments required, the tolerance for risk can change. There's always some. How much is the right amount is the magic question.
Well, and there was a stat I saw recently, and it said that leaders in companies say that innovation is 80% of importance when it comes to a competitive edge. So So like, those are big numbers. So people obviously care about it and know that's going to help you. We talk about creating the future. Having a competitive edge is obviously one way of doing that.
Actually, one point on that, the toy industry is interesting, and there may be some of you that are from the toy industry. It's a little different than some consumer products industry in that it's a very high innovation rate, so new product. For our portfolio, which is about 3,500 products a year across the different categories that we represent, about 60%, and thank you for the applause, about 60% are brand new every single year, which is a very, very high, which means that in terms of being risk averse, Mattel is not risk averse because a lot of the stuff we make doesn't work. A lot of the stuff we do make or makes does work, so it balances it out, and innovation is a critical part of how that works, both selling into retail, the customer, and ultimately creating desire with the end consumer are kind of moment of truth.
And Phil, you kind of come from the toy world, now at PepsiCo, so like, tell us what it takes to innovate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's the resilience, in a company, right? It's the thick skin that's required. There's a lot of ambiguity around innovation, and you've got to be, very much in that comfort zone that things can change very quickly and very rapidly. And that ability to be agile and to pivot and to be able to march in a different direction that suddenly has appeared in front of you, right? So I think it's a very particular individual and a team and a construct that can come together around a problem to solve, for that matter, to identify a new problem, and then be able then to rally around it and be able to stitch together a lot of expertise of multiple disciplines in order to advance that problem towards solution fit. And that's easy said. However, you've got to have that right mindset. And you mentioned risk, Chris, is that risk can be measured and it can be controlled in terms of short, mid, and long-term kind of goals for the business. And if that's mapped really well, you can almost then look at the glide path of the company and where the pain points are, and you can actually see and allow the pendulum to swing close into the core if it's needed, or for that matter, it can be the pendulum can swing straight back out to be more ambitious and more aggressive, right? So that agility, I would say, is the key to the success of innovation.
I really like the discussion on resilience and risk. I think that's a big thing for me. And innovation is something that is celebrated, right? We talk about, we love innovators, we love innovation. There are a lot of campaigns about innovation. But then the reality is that change is scary, and taking risk can be very scary in a corporate environment. And so, how to manage that risk, how to introduce that risk, how to convince the team, and the leadership is very important. And you mentioned short-term, mid-term, long-term. I think that's the way we approach that. We call that the crawl, walk, run, right? Is instead of trying to disrupt something too quickly, which will create sometimes a lot of opposition, start with something smaller and kind of like do it step by step. That's why prototyping, by the way, is very important, right? Being able to have a proof of concept. There's also the fact that innovation, by definition, means getting into the unknown, right? Something new. So how do you make the unknown tangible? How do you convince people that there's something there, there's a there? Again, prototyping, mock-ups, there are a lot of ways you can bring this to life and visualize it. Being able to pivot and really kind of track, being very clear also on what success looks like. I think that's another challenge we have sometimes when the goalpost is being shifted constantly. You're being asked to deliver on something, and then you do it, and like, well, actually, we also wanted, 1 million downloads, and you didn't do it. So being very clear on the expectation. I think those are some of the theme. I guess the last one is obviously imagination. I see exploration, I would add imagination. A lot of innovation is about trying to project ourselves in the future, trying to imagine what the future will be, and trying to imagine then how we can solve for it. And it's hard, and very often we're wrong, but not being afraid of being wrong, not being afraid of failing, I think also is very important.
Completely agree, and I think all of us here, I would imagine, have a stack of failures in our portfolio. Guilty, because you have to, right? How are you going to learn? And if, you know, it's that whole ethos of if you're not failing, you're not trying. And I'm just a firm believer of that. One thing before we go on, I did want to talk about perspectives. You know, at Dentsu, for us, it's really important to have, you know, diverse thinking, diverse thought in whatever we're creating. And I think that's different people from different backgrounds, different education. Any thoughts that you all want to share on that?
I mean, I think it's a huge one. Diversity is critical, not just to get diversity of thought coming in, but certainly depending on the product, the service, or the engagement that you are creating, having internal creators that have at least a resemblance, if not a direct reflection of the consumers you serve, is critical. And I've seen and felt and experienced moments where we've missed things because we make assumptions about our consumer audience. By the way, our consumer audience, the majority of them are 4 to 7 years old, so we also have mechanisms in place so that we can observe and engage those consumers and their parents to really make sure that a middle-aged man is not making the wrong assumptions about a toy for a 4-year-old.
Well said. Great. Cool. So, chapter 2, everyone, pioneering the future. So now each of us will sort of dive into some of our real world, examples. Cool. As I mentioned, I'm from Dentsu. I'm really fortunate to work in our Dentsu Innovation Initiative group. And as I mentioned before, our group is all about creating, you know, new products, new services, and really living one foot into the future. And we do that through, as we had on there, exploration, you know, really seeing who are the up and coming startups out there, you know, who are the different companies, and so forth. And this is really how we think about it in terms of innovation overall. We have investigate, it's kind of like the 5 eyes. Keep it simple, right? Design. But investigate, so that is that sort of exploration, you know, bringing that outside in perspective in. Chris, like you talked about, you know, you're not a 4 to 7 year old, like, clearly. So, you know, how are we going out and but making sure we're going out into the world, you know, we're exploring the world that our customers live, you know, having those interviews. We even have something called Product Playground, where we actually put the products in people's hands and see how they engage. We've done obviously with Mattel and PepsiCo prior.
Yeah, I mean that build, test, learn is, you know, essential critical work, right? So that's where we can uncover either, you know, things that we didn't expect to see, or for that matter, a way of improving, you know, the solution that's being proposed, right? So 100%.
Thank you. And then you know, when we talk about that sort of investigate stage, then we really approach it from integrate. Dentsu, for us, we call it radical collaboration, and we really live it, not only internally, you know, with all the different cross-functional teams, but Dentsu is a massive company. We have so many capabilities. So whether it's from our media teams, whether it's from our teams in our Tokyo lab, whether it's across our Dentsu creative teams, Merkle, it's really great to have all of these different capabilities to tap into, but also our partners as well. Obviously, Google is a partner of Dentsu, Amazon, Meta, Microsoft, and more. So it's really fantastic to collaborate with the innovators, you know, in the space. Go ahead, Matt.
Actually, something I haven't shared with you, but almost 10 years ago, we used to have an exchange program with Dentsu, where we would have 2 creative directors from Tokyo come to the US, spend 6 months with us. And I somehow ended up being the one responsible for them, and you know, there was strong cultural shock, obviously, you know, like an American corporate culture and a Japanese advertising culture, and some of the most exciting ideas came out of those collaborations. And so every year we would at the end have a bit of a graduation project, and the goal was to innovate. And I think my favorite idea we developed was a prototype where you could go through the Earth to see what's on the other side of the planet, which could be a toy, pretty much. And so using Street View, we were able to find a location, and in augmented reality, we'll go through the Earth, the manticore, it's the temperature go high and then go low, and you arrive on the other side. That's with that project that I learned that most of the case, if you were to actually draw a line, you will end up in the water, by the way.
So pack a virtual boat.
Yeah, a submarine.
We need to talk about revisiting this exchange program. I'm just saying. The other phase we have up here, once we sort of integrate and have that collaboration, then we're incubating, right? So as you talked about, sort of a test, learn, explore, evolve, and that's really should have a circle there because there's a lot of that, as we know, right? Iteration, and then as we sort of start proving those out, right? Kill the failures, tweak. Then we actually incorporate back into the business. So we're not innovating for innovating's sake, but we're innovating to help, obviously, Dentsu, but our clients accelerate their business. And then as you see here, the sort of rocket ship taking off, it's not just about launching that particular solution, but continuing to expand it, through partnerships and collaborations. Really briefly here's a couple of the different solutions that our groups worked on. One is called Next Intelligence, and this is really a suite of sort of 12 quick sort of innovation sprints. So everything from innovation scouting, based on a particular brand or brief, within sort of 2 to 3 weeks or less, we can bring those recommendations and, oh, by the way, here's how they apply to business. We've also done things, as I mentioned, the product playground lives in here, lean landscape review, experience review, emerging tech review. Again, there's 12 of them, and they're really quick ways to get that perspective. Obviously, Chris, there's one we did with Hot Wheels ID a while back, actually. And then the other ones are Shop Next. So that's really our retail innovations, we say, that bring customers joy. Also retailers and brands too. But that's everything from sort of contactless payment to what happens upon arrival. And then sort of the next two here are really where we did have that big collaboration, Dentsu Nextbase and Intelligent Messaging. So I'll briefly dive into those. So Dentsu Nextbase was a virtual world that we created in collaboration with Microsoft, with LinkedIn, with Head Office Space, and InWorld. InWorld's actually a company that we are invested in as well. So again, a great example where we're bringing in our sort of big technology partners, those up and coming startups, and companies we're invested in to really create a net new sort of environment. And here is a quick video on intelligent messaging, our solution we just publicly talked about at CES recently.
Consumers demand more than websites and apps. 90% want interactions in preferred channels, SMS, social media, or chat apps. Over 1 billion people message a business on Meta's platforms weekly, yet 50 million messages go unanswered by brands daily. $402 billion a year is left on the table by brands that do not provide simple experiences. On the flip side, connected consumers with positive experiences are likely to spend 140% more. That's where intelligent messaging comes in. Now, for the first time, Dentsu brings together a full suite of intelligent messaging solutions designed to accelerate one-to-one customer experiences with conversational messaging, AI-amplified assistance, and human connection. How are brands accelerating one-to-one conversational experiences? With intelligent messaging. Launch one-to-one AI-powered conversations from almost any media. QR codes, in-store signage, events, websites, traditional media, and more. Provide personalized AI-powered product education, product selection, and guided selling tailored to customers' unique tastes and choices. Gather customer insights and qualify leads through AI-powered question and answer flows that drive action. Continue the conversation with one-to-one marketing messages. Stay connected with product announcements, promotions, loyalty rewards, and shoppable moments. Amplify assistance, improve performance and support with AI-powered chatbots, synthetic humans, and our human-powered team 24/7. Increase sales, customer satisfaction, and lifetime value from discovery to loyalty. Innovative brands, schedule a demo and start accelerating one-to-one conversational experiences today.
Great. indeed. So that's intelligent messaging. As you can see, it can apply to a number of different areas of the business.
Consumer.
Here we go. Cool. So as you saw in the video, we've actually, with intelligent messaging, we've just launched it and have already worked with brands like JCPenney, Glenfiddich, as well as World Wildlife Fund. And you can see here a couple of our partners. Our key partner in developing this was Meta, and we actually created a Meta Messaging Alliance, which allows us to have access to alpha and beta products across their messaging platform before anybody else. When we talk about sort of test and learn, we can have that early access and competitive edge, as we talked about earlier.
Consumer.
And sort of lastly, before I turn it over to Chris, in the spirit of National Barbie Day, which was actually yesterday, for those who did not know, we actually put an example together here of how intelligent messaging might look or feel for the Barbie brand. Here, as you saw in the video, we can launch these experiences from any media possible. In this case, this was an email that went out recently that we sort of mocked up for the example here, where you have Mattel Creations, which is really focused about fandom, and whoever receives this could scan a QR code, boom, launch that one-to-one conversation. This is a multimodal experience, so you can actually type in, hey, can you tell me information about Barbie? And it'll pull up existing content from Mattel Creations site. Or if you want to use your phone and scan the Barbie logo and store there, it will actually pull up content from the site. And of course, lastly, we talked about Meta, and Chris and I were exchanging messages on this actually yesterday, but if you have the Meta Ray-Bans and ask it information about Mattel Creations or Barbie, of course, you're served up AI-powered instructions or information. So just a nice way how we're really looking at sort of connecting those experiences. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Okay, thank you. And interesting, I'm getting to know about what the product and platform does, and certainly from a consumer engagement point of view, while I'm focused on product toy. And by the way, the definition of toy is changing and has been changing kind of under our feet for the last over a decade. And you know this well, Phil. Is it digital? Is it physical? Is it digital and physical? Is it something that we're not even conceiving of? Probably yes, and maybe for sure. And it is all inside of the big bucket of play. So, when we think about toys at Mattel, we're really thinking about play in general. One of the things that my hope was in being able to share with you today is what to do with innovation, because it is overwhelming. When you can do anything, you can maybe end up doing nothing. And so, it's kind of a creator's dilemma. I was kind of born, raised, and educated as a designer, and of course my professional career, that's what I do as well. And my dad is a designer as well, and he used to say, look, you think a blank sheet of paper is the answer, and that is absolutely not the answer. Draw me a box and then give me some constraints, and I will give you a brilliant solution, because really what design is, innovation is, it's finding solutions to problems that exist, or solutions to problems that people don't know exist, opportunities. So the ideas that I want to share today are really the way that Mattel has taken kind of that huge opportunity space and that huge problem to solve space and created frameworks around it, ways of thinking. And it's not the gospel in any way, but it is a guideline to help orient how maybe to think about opportunities. I also want to share something just in a little bit of real time coming out of some really stimulating Future Today Institute, FTI, sessions over the last day around just the reminder that without a plan and without a vision and without alignment around where you're going and around the KPIs, the measures of success for that journey, it really creates potentially massive problems. Now, you can always get lucky, But like if I were driving to a destination and I don't define where I'm going, my drive is going to not get me where I need to go. And the same is true for business, and the same is true for innovation. So innovating with a destination in mind not only creates alliance and allegiance with those around you, but it also allows you to innovate within that box that I was talking about. So there's something in this controller, first time in my hand, so I'm getting to user interface. We make toys. Yes, we do. We do a whole lot more. The thing I want to share with you, it's going to look a little bit academic. Feel free to take pictures of it, but it's the Mattel playbook. There are really 4 simple things, and apologies if it feels obvious. It should feel obvious. It should feel intuitive. But there are 4 things that for a company like Mattel that is steeped in the history, the heritage of brands that people generationally recognize and love, they're important guidelines for us as we think about how to innovate for the future. And the first one is really understanding kind of what first and foremost is unique to Mattel, which is brand and brand purpose. And brand purpose can be very deep, inspire the possibilities with Barbie, or nurture the challenger spirit with Hot Wheels. There's a deep kind of connective tissue that may not resonate with a 5 or 6-year-old child, but definitely has a connection with a parent. But the idea that that brand, if it's a heritage brand, a generational brand, has value to it, making sure that what we are designing and conceiving of connects back and pays service to building or servicing the purpose of that brand is critical. That is a non-starter if we're innovating things that distract people from what that brand represents in society. Now, society changes, tastes change, and that's important as well. So we're always looking at the consumer, which to me, depending on whether it's a new product launch or a launch against an existing brand, always keeping the consumer in mind. I talked about, I'm not a 4 to 6-year-old, though my wife would maybe argue otherwise at various points. But understanding the consumer empathically and professionally is really important. They're not always right. They kind of think they know what they want right at the moment. But when you get into a can-do test and a kid can't do it, that's a pretty good wake-up call that you're barking up the wrong tree. The idea here is that understanding where consumers are at and thinking forward about where they might be is critical at every single step of the way, given the dynamic of what's happening around us at all times, which is the third piece, and it's cultural relevance. I mean, we're dealing with moments where the FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt of AI was like making people's knees knock together 8 months ago, 12 months ago. And today is like the kiwi strawberry of South by Southwest. Every third conversation, every first conversation involves AI in some way. Is it a societal trend? Yes. Is it a technology? Yes. It is an opportunity to improve the output, the efficiency, and the effectiveness of the organization. Yes, yes, and yes. Is it also kind of freaking people out? Yes, and I'll show you more on that a little bit later. But the cultural relevance is really kind of a keystone in ensuring that what we create is actually going to resonate. Of course, we're dealing in futures. Toys are somewhere between 12 and 15 months into the future. So we're working on fall 25 and 26 as we speak. The last one, and this is kind of unique to Mattel, but actually it is specific to Mattel, but not unique to Mattel, is just understanding how you can leverage the asset that you're building. So if everything that you do is in service to that brand, how are you then leveraging that equity across the ways that consumers connect with the brand? And I'm going to give you some examples. I'm going to actually go through kind of 3, they're not even case studies, but maybe we call it that for this. Case studies that talk about a little bit how we unpack that and look at it. Again, some of it's going to be straightforward and obvious. I'm going to start with our lady herself. Happy birthday, Barbie, 65 young years old yesterday. Yes. Wore a little bit of pink. If my Barbie comrades were here, they would be like, you're not wearing...
Be proud.
They would not be proud enough. I should be wearing my Knuff sweater, maybe the full dance jumpsuit. But I did want to just pay homage to our lady. This is Barbie doll number one in the zebra stripe swimsuit, the first one. And that wonderful photo on the left was taken in the 40s. And It is our two co-founders, Ruth and Elliot Handler. Those of you that saw the Barbie movie, heard the name thrown around a little bit. Ruth indeed was not just a co-founder of Mattel, but the inventor of Barbie. Longer story for a different session. I'll talk about Build Lily and the salacious past that Barbie actually has. But she had a dream and a vision, and she observed her daughter, Barbara, who is pictured there on the lower right of that photo, playing with paper dolls, had an idea that was inspired by things that she was seeing in the marketplace, repurposed those ideas into what has become the modern day 11.5-inch fashion doll and Barbie. Barbie started it all. It was a revolution. And it was through consumer observation, home observation. By the way, fun footnote, not gonna be talking about it today. Elliot Handler, upper right, was also a co-founder, and his invention was Hot Wheels. Not too bad. One in 1959 with Barbie and one in 1968 with Hot Wheels, two of the biggest brands in the toy industry. I mean, and that doesn't happen anymore. It's rare that you see these kind of multi-100 million, or in this case, they're both over billion-dollar brands at this point, last for as long as they have and create the kind of consumer connection. They both started with consumer-centric observation at home on the living room floor. So, where has Barbie gone since then, and why? What were the characteristics of not just a new way to play with an 11.5-inch doll that led to a brand foundation that then can be leveraged in 2020, what year are we for? 2023, on July 21st with a theatrical called The Barbie Movie. It's kind of going back to the origin story and the trailblazing that Ruth, not only from a play form factor, made, but thinking about women in careers in places that were unconventional for the time, but aspirational for everyone. That created a foundation. And that was in the 50s, in the late 50s and into the 60s. And through the story, and I've done a multi-decade jump, but not just the diversity of opportunity in terms of careers, which was a lightning rod moment at the time, but now looking at the world around us and ensuring that we're representing and reflecting not just careers, but different ethnicities and body styles. And you can see me, I can see myself in these products. That's a whole new connection that has resonated with consumers over decades. And if you think about that, think back to the origin story. If you saw how many people saw the Barbie movie, by the way? I just want to see. Okay, so a lot of you, a fair number of you, thank you, 1.47 billion, appreciate the ticket buys. But the origin story that's represented in that movie is the truth. And by the way, the movie would have never happened if the story didn't have authenticity in terms of what its goal, its purpose-driven objective was from the start. We can never define it, but you can be clear about what that purpose is, and then find new ways through time to interpret. Oh my goodness, don't tell me we've lost. Okay, so the next slides are gonna be the way that Barbie, that Barbie has actually expanded across the various points of brand purpose and consumer-centric, a consumer-centric approach, as well as understanding relevance, cultural relevance along the way. And it was going to talk about how, or show visually, how have we expanded that into not just the dolls, but the universe and play systems and all of the things that surround the dolls within the toy world, and all of the ways that modern consumers engage in brands today, whether that's a video game, or whether that's a theatrical, or whether that's a Knuff hoodie, or that's a mug. Consumers are touching brands in a lot of different places, and how are we 360 surrounding them in the right way that resonate with not just what that brand represents. It's not just the logo and Pantone 219 pink. It's also the way that we're connecting that is authentic to the purpose in the beginning. So that's Barbie. I don't know where my slides went. That's crazy.
It was great.
The next one I want to talk about, again, another case study. I'm only going to touch on this one quick, but it's a different brand and a different way of innovating. It's called Hot Wheels ID. You saw a little bit of a foreshadow. It asks the question, if the purpose of Hot Wheels is to nurture the challenger spirit, there's a challenger in every kid, how do I measure performance in a Hot Wheels on a track? You're measuring with your eyeballs, but what if your toy ripping around the track could actually tell you how fast it was going, how many miles, scale miles it was clocking. By the way, the average Hot Wheels car goes about 640 miles an hour. I actually have that wrong, but it's really, really fast at scale. And I don't know how many lifetime miles, but it's a lot. And what if that car had its own unique identity? And it was able to, over time, build your virtual collection, and every individualized car had a memory, a Carfax, if you will, of what types of experiences it had. We thought it was a great idea. We loved it. It was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing. In fact, shout out to the Future Lab team who raised it, and Ron Friedman, and I'm going to tell a story in a second. He's right here, second row. Could have gone first row, but really led that. And this is leading me to, this is, it's an innovation, but it's leading me to kind of a company like Mattel doing something that is challenging, like this project was, actually broke the conventions of our typical toy process. It was longer, it was more complicated, we actually had to go to different manufacturers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We had a software developer in the UK. I mean, it was a full-on thing. It was within the Hot Wheels team at that time. I was general manager of the business, and we reoriented how we thought about making toys through this process. I'm not going to say more about this one, but I invite you to take a picture or snap of this, because there are two resources that I think you'll find interesting. One is a two-parter with Harvard Business School, and then the other is a podcast that talk about the journey, and especially for a multi-billion-dollar company like Mattel, what kind of, excuse my French, but shit show it was internally to try to make it happen, and ultimately how the product itself opened up new horizons for Mattel in terms of how we innovate, but it didn't meet the performance expectations that we had hoped. Take a look and a listen. It's compelling stuff. It's interesting, but it opened the door. The success story out of it is it developed a muscle. It opened a door, and it actually opened a door for a brand new division inside of Mattel, inside of the design team. It was called Future Lab. I just foreshadowed it. There's some Future Lab folks here. Shout out to Future Lab, which is a focused division looking at what's next in that foggy redefinition of toy. Connected play to augmented play. They're working on things like, born from Hot Wheels ID, but augmented reality with partners, NFTs, talk about FUD. NFT Hot Wheels Garage actually has been a success. Other software-aided support systems and programs that drive toy and toy connection, and other various connected play. I'm going to end with another project the Future Lab team has worked on, and it is based on, everybody's heard of Pictionary, and if you haven't, you will after this video, but a way of thinking about current trend, current consumer, heritage brand, and interpreting it in a new way. I'll leave you with this. By the way, this is a great sell piece, and it's an internal piece. I'm bringing it in here. This is not for public consumption. It was an internal sell piece. Here we go.
Today I want to talk to you about Pictionary. If you don't know what Pictionary is, shame on you. But okay, whatever. Let's have a history lesson. Pictionary is a party game like charades, except instead of embarrassing yourself by being bad at acting, you embarrass yourself by being bad at drawing or guessing.
Baby fish mouth! Baby fish mouth!
Pictionary was invented in the early 80s by this man. When Rob launched the game in 1985, he and his friends were making copies by hand out of their apartment. And like Snoop Dogg, circa 2010, it completely sold out.
You need to stop.
Over the next 16 years, Pictionary would go on to sell over 38 million copies in 45 languages and 60 countries. It is a global phenomenon and has truly become a part of popular culture. You know what else is a global phenomenon? AI. Not that. I'm talking ChatGPT, Midjourney, DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, the kinds of AI that gave us a new Drake video. Pope Francis dripped out in the white puddle jet, and the absolute nightmare that occurs whenever a computer tries to imagine what happens when humans shake hands. Look, it's not perfect, but the fact is, AI has captured the attention of the entire planet. People are curious about it. They want to play with it. By now, I think you can probably guess where I'm going with this. We're going to put AI in Pictionary, and we're calling it Pictionary versus AI. I know what you're thinking. How does AI make Pictionary better? Does the AI write the clues? No. Do I tell the AI what to draw? No. Does the AI make me a better artist? No. How can I put this? We're going to take the most advanced neural network the world has ever known. An invention so groundbreaking, its impact on humanity is being compared to the invention of electricity and fire. And we're going to see if it can guess your drawing of a duck. Look, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, I'm trying to tell you that this is like using NASA's James Webb Space Telescope to take photos of your cat. A shockingly irresponsible abuse of technology. You don't have to be a great artist. You just have to be good enough for the AI to get it. And if the AI can't guess your drawing, well, that's on you. Pictionary versus AI.
Thank you, everyone.
It's fantastic. It just takes me back the last few years and making crazy videos. But yeah, oh, wow, didn't that get across? So that's fantastic. Just reflecting and actually building on a point that you mentioned, Chris, is that, you mentioned about diversity and about, cultural relevance. And I was reflecting on, what about the future and, how are we kind of approaching the future? And I kind of angled 3 different subjects that, I wanted to openly talk about and share with the wonderful crowd here. But I think the first subject matter is about talent. I think we really underestimate, both the people that are around us, that we work with on a daily basis, and the relationships that we forge, and the level of respect that we have for each other. And when that level of respect is in place and the right talent pool is working and pulling together, you are capable at creating that future context. And we talked a little bit about them shorter versus longer terms. It's a case of stitching together that unique skill set and platform in order for it to advance the agenda of not just, the project that's at hand, but the corporate agenda, right? Where it needs to go in the world. And so I pulled this video up, from our peers back in the office, and I think it really starts to speak to that. So I'll skip to the next video, and if you could just run that would be great. It'll give you a really good indication of within design innovation how it works together.
Brands today go beyond what we hold in our hands and what we see with our eyes. They can create a chain reaction of positive moments. At PepsiCo Design and Innovation, we're not just working on design. We're helping to shape brands for the future, to bring ideas to real people at a global scale. Our secret weapon? Bringing in talent with a diverse set of skills.
Curiosity, 同情
Compassione.
compassion, partnership,
Trabajando juntos.
乐观 optimism,
Resilience.
diverse thinking,
Diversifikacja rozmyśleń.
confidence, fortitude.
Humbleness.
Bringing together design expertise with empathy and passion to create an environment at work that makes the work even better.
Yeah, it's a really nice way, and when you think about design as a function in a big corporation like ourselves, there's the entire gamut. It's not just about building beautiful brands that look gorgeous, right? It's about the real end-to-end inception to finish, right? So think of it as putting together the best industrial designers, the best graphic designers, the best structural packaging execution designers. And then it's thinking about how we leverage functions like design research to best inform and build empathy with the humans that we are designing for, getting into people's homes, really understanding the attitudes and the habits and the nuances and the behaviors that they are using and expressing it on a daily basis, that's where we really start to understand the today, and that's how we can then look forward and simulate and use foresights, tailwinds, headwinds, which allow you to simulate that future state and build the tension between today and that future context. That's where you can start to get into backcasting from that future state and allow us to create solutions which not just kind of are products that end up on shelf, but where do they end up on shelf? How are they getting into the hands of our consumers? Are they going to the supermarket, or are they actually clicking a button via the UX, UI that we are scrolling and mining and engaged in on a digital platform in our hands or in our pockets? So that is a very different view, and that end-to-end is super, super important, right? So in order for us to create and execute excellent ideas and opportunities, it even includes looking into the supply chain, looking into the procurement leads, and really understanding what you can really kind of, from a four-lens perspective, yes, the desirability needs to hit that perfect problem to solve, that human-centric element, but then it needs to be able to, can I afford it? Can I scale it? And of course, the major push as us as a design community, the sustainability element. That is inherent to the thinking that we have as a business and as a unit. The second part, again reflecting on what we should bring to the surface in a conference like this, is our partners. Now, I agree with the AI conversation 8 to 10 months ago. It was a tough sell, right? I remember being in a CES panel, not dissimilar to this, where I could speak from a personal standpoint about my excitement for AI, but on a business level, we can't really talk about it at this point in time, but more to come, right? However, fast forward to today, our team has worked extremely hard, working with some of the best on the planet, and I'm sure, yourself, Val, and Chris, and Matthieu, you're immersive in that world on a daily basis with various tools. But putting tools in the hands of that design team has been an amazing possibility, right? So we are a strategic partner with Adobe, and no surprises. Our friend Adobe Firefly is allowing us to stretch and do things which we never even thought was possible, or it would have taken us days to do. Classically doing some of the phases and stages in design and design development. So this again is a tool that requires human touch, right? And if it's applied in the right way on an end-to-end level, my word, we can accelerate beautiful solutions as a result of it. The third piece, beyond the right toolkit and the right application of the tools against the right problem, is our planet. We're all responsible for pushing our sustainability agenda in a really big and aggressive way. And it really is a foundational area and space for us as a team. And I'm not going to drain this slide, but Pep Positive is a wonderful thing that's championed by our CEO, who's been a trailblazer for Pep Positive. I encourage you to go online, read the depth and the strength of this program, which is really about positive agriculture. It's about positive value chain, and it's also about positive choices, right? And the ability to put, functional ingredients and foods and solutions in the hands of our users, which are better for you, right? So it's an amazing program, and I really encourage you to dig deep. On a personal level, I think this is worth mentioning, because human centricity, you mentioned as well, Chris, is that we need to take human centricity and do human centricity plus, right? What I mean by that is that we should be thinking it through a lens of life-centered design. And what I mean by that is that the power of human centricity plus our humanity plus then our ability then to impact the globe and the planet on an impactful level. That is our collective responsibility. I listened to a wonderful gentleman, Don Norman, who you may have heard of as the godfather of human centricity, and recently listened to a talk by him. And he's put together a great book, which is the Design for a Better World. I encourage you to buy it, read it, cover to cover. But that is part of the responsibility and the information that we should be applying in our job on a daily basis and an hourly basis. So I encourage you to do that. And so that kind of leads me on to the colour pink, which obviously was for our friends at Barbie today. But hopefully them three kind of key anchors just gives you a little bit more of an understanding of what's really responsible from a design innovation standpoint and what we're truly passionate about.
Thank you, Phil.
I think we have a lot of common theme, and one theme I heard again and again is the human centricity. I think one of my mentors used to say, technology is not an idea, right? And so don't start with the technology, start from the humans. And I see two aspects here. One is really the importance of the team, of the talent. I think that was something important also, talking about the diversity, the need for diverse perspective, the need for diverse teams if you want to innovate. And that is key to my practice, is making sure you build the environment and the team that have positive friction, as I like to call it. I always thought that creativity was coming from friction. There's a reason why when you look at a lot of musical movements, cultural movements, they come from the fringe. They come from people who are living that difference of perspective, that friction in their life. And so that's a very first important point for me. Make sure that the team you build, the people you work with, are bringing those different perspectives in life, different perspectives in terms of identity. The second point, obviously, is being obsessed with humans, right? So we talked about exploration, being curious, being on the field. User research are very helpful. UXR is great, but there's always a bit of a mediation between you and the humans, and so spending as much time as possible going to buy software, so going out and going to exhibition, just spending a lot of time traveling to kind of have all those insights, I think is very important. A second pillar for me is, if you want to design for the future, you need to understand the future. And if you want to solve for the future, you need to understand what are the challenges of the future. And it's very hard, right? No one knows what the future is going to be. Otherwise, we all will have invested in Apple stocks maybe 20 years ago, or Nvidia stocks 6 months ago. And there's a method I love to use in order to try to understand the future, at least have a bit of a radar view of it, and that's a design method we call speculative design. Speculative design was a method invented in London about 15 years ago in the Royal College of Arts. And the idea is that pretty much instead of trying to think about what is going to be likely to happen, try to expand your horizon and think about what is not likely but is possible. They call that the cone of possibilities. And it's pretty much take a trend today, try to project that trend in the future, try to extrapolate it, start to think on the edge. See that the theme of fringe is still here, right? And start to think about, okay, so it's very likely that, for example, in 1 year from now, AI is going to be more used in order to actually help create. But it is possible, though it's not likely, that AI might be actually forbidden and that you might not be able to use AI. And so now suddenly you have a different perspective. And speculative design is a lot about world building, actually. It's like once you have projected where the world could be, you start building a world, you start building all the ingredients, you start building, okay, what society will look like, what consumption will look like, what food might look like. And then you start extracting from it potential challenges. And then you design for that. You design prototypes, you design artifacts. And so I think it's a very powerful way, actually, to design for the future by using speculative design. So search online, that's a method I really love. The final point is, we talk a lot about objectives, we talk about KPIs, and in our jobs we need to have objectives, and that's the only way you can assess, progress and success. It's also that way that you can convince your leadership to actually work on a project. But I was very interested recently by a book I read called Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned. And the thesis of that book is pretty much that the greatest discoveries and the greatest innovation were not planned. People stumbled upon those kind of by mistake. And the takeaway from that book was pretty much, if you want to maximize your ability to innovate and design for the future, recognizing that we have no idea where things are going pretty much, you need to shift your mindset and you have to become a treasure hunter. And that has stayed with me since I read that book. You know, how do I make sure that I become a treasure hunter? How do I create a team? How do I create an environment where everybody is treasure hunter? That means that you need to multiply the surface of research. That means that you need to adopt a different mindset where you're not just laser focused on one thing, you also try to look around. And once you find those treasures, then you can develop them, then you can innovate. So leaving you with those few thoughts, it's been very inspiring for me on how to design for the future, recognizing again that it's a very imperfect art, clearly not a science. Again, if we knew where the future was going, the world would be very different. Now showing you a few practical examples of how we're trying to design for the future. Here's a project I worked on about 40 months ago with the band Gorillaz. We created an augmented reality experience that turned Times Square into a giant music video. And so that was an experience you could download an app, and then in augmented reality, you would see this. There's like no VFX, no post-production. What you see here is like an exact capture of what the phone will see. So that was a good example, in my opinion, of designing for the future. We started with a technology and a human insight in a way. The technology is called geospatial, and it is a technology that is built on top of Street View and lets you attach content to any public physical location. So that was the starting point. With that technology, you can attach content. What do you do? The human insight in that case is, it's actually a personal insight more. Is for many years I've been walking to my office. I'm lucky to walk during my commute, and I've been dreaming, wouldn't it be cool if I could have one day AR glasses, and as I walk, the world around me would be a music video. And all the buildings, maybe the windows, you would have the performers all over the windows, maybe the building would be changed. That's a bit of a personal dream. And so obviously when the technology came, I was like, that's it. That's a moment. Let's do it. And then talking about being a treasure hunter, I've been lucky enough for all those years to work with a lot of great creative partners, great studios, great organization. And typically, I had a technology, had a deadline, 8 weeks, we had some budgets, and I knew the right person to call in that case. I knew someone who was working with Gorillaz, who was working on their new album, and that's how the magic happened. And so that's, again, a project that was live for about a year and a half. And that was us also, in a way, trying to foresee where the future goes, because a lot of us think that we might most likely have augmented reality glasses 10, maybe 20 years from now. And this, in many ways, is almost like a preview of an augmented world where you can decide actually to transform your environment and use it as a stage for creativity and for experiences. Then, moving beyond, Gorillaz was the first project. We started easy with one location. And then we decided to explore, okay, so what about gaming? I think we have toys, gaming, we have a lot of common themes here. And we started thinking, okay, so I know now how to transform one place, but what does it mean to transform everywhere? If you want to scale those experiences, they need to be dynamic. You need to adapt to every single location. And that's a very hard problem to solve for. How do you design not just for a screen? How do you not design just for a physical location? How do you design for every single physical location in the world? Those are examples of future design challenges. In a world where you have AR glasses, the equivalent of responsive design is not going to be, I have like 5 different screen resolutions. It's going to be, I have billions of locations and I need an experience that works everywhere. And so the project you see here is a game we developed with the Japanese company Taito that is famous for video game Space Invaders. Last year was the 45th anniversary of Space Invaders, and so we were privileged to work with them. We went to Tokyo, we showed them a few mocks, trying to show them where we thought it could go. They loved the visualization, they loved the prototype. And we built a game that pretty much lets you play, again, in any public location, and we have data on the buildings, we know where you are, we have like a 3D mesh of all the buildings, and so we were able to build an AR game where not only you were pretty much playing Space Invaders in the real world, But something you don't see in that GIF, we also will let you play them in 3D on your phone, a game level that is built in real time based on your environments. And again, you see how this is like today's innovation. That's something that is using today's technology. In the meantime, this is in many ways a reflection of where the world is going if one day we massively adopt augmented reality glasses. You know, like the mobile game of the future with VR glasses will potentially look like that. And again, the challenges will be, how do you design for everywhere? I know a very big learning, by the way, is this game introduced a totally new design paradigm, a new user behavior, a new pattern. People are not used to go outside necessarily. I mean, Pokemon Go, you go outside, but you still mostly play on your screen. In that case, you were supposed to go outside, you were supposed to scan around you were supposed to play the world. And that's one of the things we learn is how difficult also it is to drive adoption of those new patterns. And some people will be just completely lost and confused. Well, why do I have to go out of my living room? Why do I have to go outside? What do you want from me? Back to the challenge of innovation, we love innovation, it's being celebrated, but the reality is that it's just very hard for one innovation successful. There are dozens failure, and it's not as easy as having, you can have a great brand, you can have a great game. People also kind of need a step-by-step path to understand where it's going and to understand, why they should kind of pretty much play that game. Final example, this one is a project we did with the NBA. We had a great partnership with the NBA for the Pixel phone, the Google Pixel phone, and the Pixel phone is the official device of the NBA. And so 2 years ago, when there was a lot of thinking around the metaverse and how do you expand a franchise, an IP, in that case, the NBA, we worked with the NBA to create pretty much the virtual metaverse of the NBA. That is an experience that is in their app, and in that case it was also how do you integrate the innovation you see to try to create a meaningful experience that drives value. It's not just a gimmick, that is not just following the hype cycle, but also really help drive the ecosystem and help drive value for the fan. And so that experience had a few interesting ideas. You could create your own avatar, we had a bit of digital fashion, you could actually, unlock different items. But the part I like the most is something you're seeing here a little bit. We developed that concept of what I call a 3D replay. And the idea of 3D replay is we will take regular dunks, from films, from TV. We took actually the 10 most celebrated dunks in history, starting with the famous Michael Jordan dunks. And actually we will let you replay those dunks in 3D with your own avatar. And so of course you're able to move the camera, you're able to control it. And again, that's an example of us trying to build today what we think will become meaningful in the future. And part of my personal work the last few years has been around the concept of what I call liquid content. I believe that actually, especially with AI, the content is going to become increasingly liquid, which means that it's going to be dynamically adapted in real time and is going to change across many dimensions. It's going to change across time, right? You might be able to change the nav across space. You might be able to watch a movie or step into a movie in XR across interaction. And that is here the example of interaction. What if you could watch a game in real time, an NBA game, and at some point decide that you want to change the camera angle? Those are like future thinking ideas, What if you could change the art direction also of any show, of any film? What if you could actually mash up Hot Wheels and Barbie? As my son and I were watching the new Hot Wheels show on Netflix, which I thought was great. But what if you could actually decide, the aesthetic of it and control that? Which is what we did here pretty much in that case by allowing you to reskin those dunks with your own personal avatar. So as you can see, there's always a bit of a tension between we're building something now with the latest technology, but always in mind, where we believe potentially the world is going. It's never perfect. We don't know where the future is going, but it's always a way to learn a lot and to validate hypotheses and to hopefully, future learnings or where we think we should invest more.
Thank you so much, Matt. Well, I know we are at time, but I guess really quickly, if there's any, we'd love for you all to stay connected. Yeah, we appreciate you all coming out. We'd love to stay connected. We hope you all enjoyed the stories, and we'll be outside if you all want to connect. So thank Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.